Round 2 of the DO'd SuperGP Champions Trophy made its way to Zwartkops, and all this action is proudly brought to you by Digital Entertainment On Demand and their associate sponsors.
The shortest track on the national tour, Zwartkops, is tight, it is technical, and it is testing.
For the second time out, rain would definitely come into play. Incredibly, 2 wet races in a row was going to put some of these riders to a very big test indeed.
At round number 2, and for the second time ever, the Super Juniors would be going into action. A track that really suits the KTM 390s. But for the first time, KTM were up, and Brendan Staffen was the fastest kid to catch out there. Cape Town had joined.
Brendan Staffen quickest in qualifying ahead of championship leader William Friend. Lots of work to do for Friend. Lance Murray was up as well. Coccione, Jabert and Tyrese Robert stepped up for the first time in the 2015 season.
Race number 1 would be trying and testing. It would be dry weather, and the afternoon was predicted for rain. Rhino Jabert not getting fired off the line as he wanted to, and it was the might of Cape Town, Brendan Staffen, converting his pole position into the hole shot, who would lead into turn number 2.
Trying to get away as quickly as possible from William Friend, Lance Murray with Dominic Doyle on his tail, and it was Jenna Clare putting the pressure onto the back end of Tyrese Robert.
Loureiro and Aitken, the 2 pinners from round number 1, were out, which means we would have new winners on the season. It was a good opportunity for Cape Town to try and arrive, but William Friend, remember, he was looking odds on for good running in the points, and he was right on the back end of Staffen. Murray was leading the 3rd place charge with Doyle and the rest trying to figure the track out.
Tyrese Robert getting to grips with it through Castle Magnetic, and then Coccione looking to come up his inside as they got into the top end of the field and hard on the brakes to Discover Digital.
It was a predicted 12 lapper with the guys lapping on a 1:13 predicted fastest lap. We would see some close and tight racing, and once again it was the chase group where Tyrese Robert was shoving the wheel in on Doyle, trying to make a muscle move.
Left, right and centre couldn't find a way through. Aitken, as you mentioned, still injured. Doz Loureiro, unfortunately, on international duties, so that left an opening for a new winner, possibly to outgun the championship leader, William Friend.
Doyle was doing a great job in the chase group and keeping off the likes of Coccione. Coccione had a real bad situation, and William Friend was having an even worse one.
Problems with the bike, pulled onto the sideline, couldn't get it going, a misfire on the KTM, and it looked like he might be out of it.
Yeah, that is a tragedy for one of our top runners, which meant there was a massive gap out front. Remember, before this problem occurred, Friend was right on the back wheel of Staffen. Eventually, he got the bike going. Would he be able to do what he did in race number 1 at round number 1 at the Pekisa, where he started from the pit lane? Would he be able to close up and run through the field? It didn't look like it.
The bike got going again, and then once again went back into that limp mode option, and that was it, done and dusted for William Friend. So the battle now was for second place. Lance Murray slightly ahead of 3, 4 and 5 here. Dominic Doyle, Tyrese Robert and Luca Coccione.
Yeah, it looked like odds on we would have a new man in 3rd place, and William Friend could all but just limp around the track and stay out of the way. Doyle was in a good running, and Coccione was the fastest of the chase group and was trying to take back that podium position that he had in the early running.
One by one, fighting hard. Coccione eventually got through, and Doyle was demoted. So down to 4th place, Tyrese Roberts not too far off, waiting for a mistake from one of the 2 riders ahead of him. Into turn number 2, and a good effort there for NGL Logistics as he got up on the inside, and Tyrese Robert showed the action for turn 2.
Dominic Doyle got hung out to dry completely there. 2 passes in less than half a lap. Tyrese Robert so late and deep on the brakes, positioned himself a full bike length ahead of Doyle. Doyle had nothing to do but roll out of that one and wait for the line to be cleared. A shake of the head as he gets left out the back door.
Down into the closing stages, no one was going to catch Brendan Staffen. He'd opened up about a 10-second lead, but they were slowly but surely reeling in Lance Murray.
Yeah, Murray was starting to come under massive pressure for the chasers. Coccione and Tyrese Robert were working well together, and they had closed right up onto Murray's back wheel. Coccione had figured out these bikes, one of the kids to get onto them very early in the season, and the Pocket Rocket, because he's the smallest and lightest kid out there, was starting to make the moves.
4 riders battling for second place. Murray trying to keep them all at bay. Tyrese Robert wanted that podium and would do anything to try and get up on the inside and past Luca Coccione.
No comeback from the demise of William Friend as well. He only completed the 3 laps, was into the pits, and did not return to the racetrack.
Hard on the brakes into the Pirelli turn 2. And it was Tyrese Robert who eventually got through on not only third place Luca Coccioni, but second place Lance Murray as well.
2 in 1, that's why he runs the 2-2, and a bit of a madman on the brakes. Gets the drive and would head up the big chase, leaving Dominic Doyle to try and do the fight back as Coccioni was right there. It looked like Murray was able to get his position back and run in the second place once again with some muscular moves to keep the kids back.
Out of the NGL Logistics Complex at the top of the hill. Yes, indeed, Murray leading out. Oh, and what a move there from Coccioni. Had a big look, but wasn't able to make it stick on Tyrese Robert.
Entry speed, very strong, and mid-corner drive, as well as the exit speed coming out of Murray. But what an arrival for Cape Town's own Brandon Staffen as he stretched out over 10 seconds ahead of the chasers, who weren't slowing each other down. In fact, these guys were running the hottest laps the whole way through the race, right at the end.
Brandon Staffen able to get down into a 13.8, but 14 low 14s out of the 4 riders behind him, kept them well within the hunt. And going up to the top of the hill and into the NGL Logistics Complex, it was Tyrese Robert going for a do or die, not close enough to Murray, and Murray looks like he may be able to hang on for the second spot.
The staller on the line, unfortunately, Ronald Joubert not able to join the party, but the party poppers were out, and the new victor on the season at round number 2, heat number 1, going to Cape Town's Brandon Staffen. New kids arriving every single time, and that is what we will talk about as the season goes on. More bikes becoming available, more kids jumping in the seat.
First race and first place for Brandon Staffen. Lance Murray in second place. Tyrese Robert hung on for third, beating Coccioni to the line. Doyle, Joubert and Ecot with a DNF for friend.
Hi, my name is Jenna Earcoat. I race in the Super Junior Trophy. My dad is my sponsor, and this is my 60 seconds in NGL Logistics. My proudest moment is getting my first podium in the northern regions, and I'm waiting to achieve my first podium in nationals. My favorite racetrack on the SuperGP calendar is currently Keilani. My favorite superhero is Valentino Rossi. I don't think anyone could be as good as him, winning 9 world championships behind his name. Nando's at KFC, that's not for me. I have no favorite sport besides racing. MotoGP or SPK, I don't think SPK is going to do it for me. My motorbike sounds like a giant fart. My biggest rival is all my teammates in my team. My most prized possession is my Ara helmet. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be around today. My favorite sports car is a Lamborghini. Mountain bike or road bike, I would go for mountain biking for training purposes. Favorite cartoons are so not for me. Favorite actor? Twitter or Instagram? I so totally enjoy Instagram. That's me, Jenna Eckerd. My 60 seconds delivered to you by NGL Logistics.
Race number 2 in another 12 laps of racing action. Friend was back in the mix, but had to roll out of it as another lightning start came from Brandon Staffen. The kid from Cape Town has got the Midas touch right now.
Murray into third place with Coccioni on his tail. Tyrese Robert, a better start from Reinald Joubert, beating Jenna Claire down into turn 2. And as they got to the top of the hill, looked like 3 riders were starting to break away. Led out by Staffen, but Friend sitting comfortably now and hoping for no issues on the bike.
Remember, but this was the first time ever that Brendan Staffen had seen the circuit. All of these races and a couple of practice sessions were all the experience he had. Friend and most of the rest of the category of Super Juniors have a lot of laps around here as part of the regional series, so they know exactly where to go, but they cannot match the pace of Cape Town.
Staffen was looking good and certainly was the rider to be at the top end of this field. The battle for fourth place, though, led out by Murray, Tyrese Robert and Coccioni, as 1 and 2 started to open up a really nice margin.
Yeah, these 3 only got to know each other towards the halfway marker and end of heat number 1. This time around, they were grouped closely at the beginning stages, and the danger man was definitely the 22 of Tyrese Robert. So strong on the brakes, makes the pass and sees clear air.
He definitely wanted to get a second podium on the day. All that was worrying him was Lance Murray and Luca Coccioni. If we could just break a little bit of a margin on the 2 of them, there was a possibility of the double podium, but it wasn't going to be easy.
The Super Juniors were the first of the afternoon session of racing, and up until this point, it was staying dry. Without braking maneuvers like this and loading up the front end, Robert was praying it stayed that way on the 2-2.
And hoping that KTM had developed those forks ever so slightly, because remember, we'd seen issues with the front forks at the first round, costing 2 of the lead riders to go down, and both of those riders not here at this round. But the guys from Rad Motos had certainly done their job.
KTM SA putting a lot of time and development and working with the regional category of racing, where these bikes also run, to get a little bit more seat time and more development and that's why at round number 2 here at Zwartkops, they've arrived with a better package.
A little bit more planted, and of course all on Pirelli rubber now. So we spoke to Mark from Pirelli. He told us that these tires would not go off. Once they're on the bike, it's pretty much the same right throughout the race.
Marais living on in a comfortable position right now, but the man who is throwing it all up the inside and telling Coccioni to come with him is Tyrese Robert.
Get into my slipstream. Let's work together and try and bridge the gap. They weren't going to catch these two. Brandon Staffen with 1 lap to go, leading things out over wild William Friend.
Yeah, William Friend just luckless at the moment, having to start from the pit lane in the first race at the first round at Pekisa. This time around, he has got good form in heat number 2. Remember, a DNF in heat number 1, and he's lost a chunk of points in the championship.
The one cool thing is they came to take the checkered flag. Brandon Staffen was going to take the second victory on the day. William Friend would recover nicely to take a second place, which means he's been on every single step of the podium.
Yeah, it helps him out for sure, but welcome to a double victory on the day, and welcome to Cape Town's own Brandon Staffen. He likes Zwartkops a lot, thank you very much. Don't need a mountain where he's going.
A nice job there from Staffen and Friend, 1 and 2. They're a couple of seconds up the road, about 10 seconds all in all ahead of Tyrese Robert, who came through for 3rd place, beating Lance Marais, and Luca Coccioni eventually just behind the two of them. Reinald Joubert with a better start had to finish behind Coccioni, with Dominic Doyle beating Claire Eckhout for the final position.
Brandon Staffen takes the new lap record for the Super Juniors here at Zwartkops.
An amazing race for you because it's a double victory on the day.
Yes, it was a very difficult race. It was a pity when I saw Williams' bike break, and I was really unhappy with that, the fact that his bike broke, but I'm just so happy with my results.
Stay with us, because after the break we go into the Super 600s.
Welcome back to the arena of motorsports, Zwartkops, and it's the first round. We're going to see the 600s go to battle at this epic circuit. Odendaal looking like he was the man to beat with a 1:02.2. Adolf Boshoff right up there with him, and Michael White 3rd in the qualifying.
I'm planning this race to push from the beginning, and yeah, let's see how it goes.
This is the first time in 2 years we're actually racing here, so if we can get podiums both races, bag the points, I'll be over the moon there.
Race number 1 would be on for a predicted 18 laps. A very long and hard race for the guys. Zwartkops, super hard on the back tire, super hard on the front, super hard on the brakes and body. It is going to be a extremely strong rider and fit rider who can hang tough the whole way through this one. You'd be hard pushed to bet against Odendaal right now.
Unfortunately, a technical infringement saw him start at the back of the grid. So that gave the pole position to the cowboy, Adolf Boshoff, starting from 2nd. And let's see what Odendaal could do from the back end.
Odendaal running in around about 5th place into turn number 1 as Blaze Baker throws it all in, but it's Adolf Boshoff that will go into turn 2 first as the number 1 Neolife rider, now powered by Yamaha, comes on through and joins the party.
Yeah, comes up to about 4th or 5th place there as they came out of turn 2 Pirelli corner, through the big sweeper and onto the back straight. Boshoff opening up a really good margin. Alan John Fenter getting up to 2nd place on the Triumph, and then a big move up the inside from Blaze Baker, tipping the back end of the Triumph and running wide.
That's the 2nd time this season that AJ Fenter has been tagged. This time by Baker, last time by Boshoff, and Baker this time is the big loser.
Fortunately, Alan John Fenter didn't lose out as big as what he did at Pekisa Freeway. And then Ricky Lee Weir came up on the inside and had a big look too. Weir with a big turnaround in his season after going down at Pekisa Freeway, fighting at the front end for what is 4th place on track with both Rudman on a new Kawasaki and the Triumph rider, Alan John Fenter.
Oh, mad line from Ricky Lee Weir. You see exactly what he was doing, trying to go for the cutback. Lost his gears, lost all his momentum, and now he gets sucked back into the 3rd of the chase groups.
Yeah, Nicole Van Arsveen leading that 3rd group out with Jesse Boshoff right with her, and Barnard. Incredible stuff from our Super 600s.
The top 3 stretching away, and Odendaal from the back of the pack, currently sitting in 3rd place on the back wheel of Magic Mike White and Adolf Boshoff. It was only a matter of time, and it looked like the Neolife, now powered by Yamaha rider, was on point to go at it once again. Boshoff was blocking. That meant the pace was slowing down.
Now, Michael White looking for an opportunity to get through on Boshoff at all chances available to him. Going through the left-hand flick, he got good drive, and now look to go into the final turn and make that move stick.
Magic Mike trying to line up the inside. The 58, currently running in 2nd place, was in a terrible position, trying to go for the win, but also trying to fend off Odendaal. Odendaal eventually made the move, sweeping around the outside of turn number 1, setting it up for the inside of turn number 2. that meant he was now in second place.
The Yamaha, the meat and the sandwich between the two Kawasaki riders, and right now as they came out of the big sweeper onto the back straight, looked like he had the pace to get past Boshoff and wasn't going to hold back too long to do that overtaking maneuver.
No, he wanted to do it quick. He had sat on the back wheel of the top two for more than 3 laps. This is where he got it to count around the outside, a place only for the brave of turn number 1, sets you up perfectly. As long as you can get on the anchors and get on the drive, you can make the move through.
And a very difficult passing maneuver to try and attempt there into turn 1, which cost him dearly. He ran wide, didn't look too worried about it, sat up, and he'd probably have to do the same maneuver on Magic Mike as what he'd done earlier on.
Behind the top 3, the rest of the chasers were starting to calm themselves down a little bit, and there was a lot of chopping and changing in the first 3 laps, which slowed the pace. By this stage, though, there was a good rhythm going, and in the background, they would start building it up.
Incredibly, it wasn't Udendal who had the fastest lap of the race so far, even though he looked like he was gunning it. It was Magic Mike that started to put in the hot laps. The reason he wanted to do that is he needed to get past Boshoff and possibly take the win.
There's a nice replay of Udendal trying to show the line up the inside. At the top of the hill, that man, Boshoff, outbraked himself, and the shake of the head tells you he is not happy with that one.
Just getting it all wrong under braking at the top of the circuit. Getting it all right under braking, though, is Udendal. Watch him on the inside. Almost carbon copy of the previous overtaking maneuver he did on Magic Mike. And this time, he's going to have to try harder to get past Boshoff.
Yeah, ran in a little bit hotter. Now he doesn't want to be playing around. He is going to want to have to get out front early on, and he did it in the exact same lap. Got up the inside, forced Boshoff wide. Boshoff and him going for the cutback, and Magic Mike back into the mix once again. So the top 3 showing no respect, or maybe too much respect to each other, and giving each other that chance to come back onto the racing line.
Chopping and changing for the 3rd time in 3 corners. Incredible stuff coming out of our Super 600s, and that was the maneuver. Got up the inside, Magic Mike came back at him, but then, of course, at the top of the hill, he went for the outbraking on Boshoff, and that cost him dearly, back down to 3rd place.
Udendal coming to terms and becoming one with his new race bike straight away. Then at the top of the hill, this was an amazing maneuver. Boshoff staying in it, out on the bumps, and crossing that thing up. Udendal took himself and Boshoff wide, and eventually, Udendal was actually the big loser in that one, as Magic Mike was in the right place at the right time. Thank you very much. I'll take 2nd place back.
Oh, brilliant stuff, and the MSA photographers in the background getting great shots of it to put up onto the Facebook page. Brilliant stuff here as they went down into the final stages, and for a 3rd time, it was Udendal. Could he get it 3rd time right?
Yeah, this time around, he wanted to check out. You know what? You can play this game for a little while, and he knows that. But if you want to live on, you have to check out and get out front. By the late stages, though, a mistake from Boshoff allowed Udendal to get on through, and it was only Magic Mike that could go with him onto the last lap.
Onto the last lap, and Mike White just hanging on for dear life. He had a chance of taking the victory away from Stephen Udendal. The Neo Life powered by Yamaha machine out front. Chasing down was the consortium shipping Kawasaki, and look how hard he was trying.
Yeah, a lot of corner speed carried in by Magic Mike, and Magic was looking very strong out of the corners, which is why the Neo Life powered by Yamaha rider was doing a little bit of stalling mid-corner just to take that advantage away.
Incredible stuff from these 2 youngsters as they go up to the top of the hill for the final time. Was there going to be an opportunity? The look back from Udendal means he was worried.
Yeah, definitely a little bit worried. Mike is so good around this circuit. Udendal putting on a show there, laying black stripes the whole way around. And the champ was on form, so happy with his new equipment. And a slight arrival on the season here for Magic Mike, putting his name into the hat for the championship.
Heading down into the final turn, and it was going to be Udendal to hang on, only just to beat out Mike White. 1/10 of a second split them across the line, and then had to wait a slight margin to the man who made a mistake right in the closing stages there, Boshoff for 3rd.
Yeah, Boshoff has definitely got the pace to run with these guys and to take race victories, but he will have to wait a little bit longer and polish his kind of messy style to get himself up there.
Malcolm Rudman incredibly up to 4th place, his best finish ever, ahead of Alan John Venter and Nicole van Arsvegen, both on triumphs. Dylan Barnard, McCullum and Boshoff beating out Baker right in the end in 10th place.
It was a good race. I think in the beginning I was pushing far too hard, eating the back tire up, so when they passed me I had no grip and they had more speed than me. So yeah, for the second race we'll see how it goes.
We came in, we thought it would be a little bit hard to beat the Oaks, but we came here in off-season and got a bit of testing, so we weren't too unhappy. Qualifying got us there, but in the race, going against us, like, it's something special.
Receiving the bike on Tuesday, it's very difficult to get on pace, especially to run with the national boys here. But I was very happy, and we just have to keep focused and just try as hard as I can. I have to use everything in the bag to make it work for me.
I'm AJ Fenter. I ride in the DOD Super 600 on board a Triumph, and this is my NGL logistics delivered to you in 60 seconds. My proudest moment was finishing my first Ironman TT 2 years ago. My favorite racetrack on the SuperGP calendar is Red Star Raceway. My favorite superhero, Johnny Bravo. Blonde or brunette? Brunette. Nando's or KFC? Nando's. My favorite sport besides motorsport? Swimming. MotoGP or SPK? MotoGP. What does my motorbike sound like? It makes a loud noise. Who's my biggest rival? I think there's 11 of them in this class. My most prized possession? My motorbike. What's my favorite sports car? My Toyota Runex. Mountain bike or road bike? Road bike. Who's my favorite actress? My girlfriend's quite a good actor. Twitter or Instagram? Instagram.
Going forward into heat number 2, the heavens were opening and it was going to be a gnarly one.
The first heat didn't go as planned, overcooked the tires. So the second heat, we're going to wait and see what's going to happen, and then hopefully be there the last few laps to make a move on the win.
The oaks in front are very, very good. We're struggling a little bit with a few problems, but I think we got them sorted, so let's see if we can make it happen.
Race number 2, promising to bring the weather. Not at the beginning, but possibly a little bit later on. These guys would be forcing the pace as hard as they can to try and get the race wrapped up. Look at Blaze Baker. Talk about a turnaround 10th place into the whole shot.
Yeah, that guy, Jesse Boss, also getting a good start, as did Alan John Fenter. Unfortunately, problems there for Magic Mike. He's in 4th place. Rudman right on his tail. And, we got some work to do. There's going to be some interesting action by the time we get to the mid part of this race.
Yeah, it looked like in race number 1 that Odendahl was quite comfortable to plow through the field and take his time. This time around, he knows he is the pace of the field. He knows he's the fastest man out there and can pick and choose where he puts his new bike to get the moves on through.
Incredible stuff as he started to make his way through on Nicole van Arsvegen at the top of the hill. Late braking and getting the Yamaha up the inside of the Triumph. And the second Yamaha on the back, starting to put the pressure onto the back end of the young lady.
It was going to be a very tricky opening lap just to try and stay out of trouble. Remember, race number 1 showed all the chinks in the arbor. It was at this point where Baker went into the back end of AJ Fender. This time around, he was running out front and looked happy with it. But Magic Mike, carrying all that confidence from his second place in race number 1, was right there, and he wanted to taste clean air as well.
Up onto the braking markers, and Baker being closed down not only by the first Kawasaki, the consortium shipping Kawasaki of Magic Mike, but also by the championship leader and race 1 winner, Odendahl. Just behind Odendahl, though, as we saw Boshoff going down in a big way, he would crash out at turn 1.
Yeah, just having real problems coming to term with the national setup on his Nashua machine. At the front, though, the 4-way split had become. That meant that Baker was slowing the pace down out front and allowing this time Adolf Boshoff to join the party. This was dangerous.
The Cowboy Pooch and Magic Mike on his tail. Not going to be easy to hold him off. Baker was doing a valiant job, but how much longer could he hang on?
Odendahl. This was Odendahl's turn. The outside of turn number 1, setting up the inside of turn number 2. Almost showing a wheel up the inside of Baker. And your reigning champion and race number 1 winner up into second place early.
Was that the 4th time he pulled that maneuver off? I think it was.
Yeah, just got that thing absolutely taped. And Baker was now in trouble. It was clear that Baker could not run the hot laps in the early pace and was possibly shredding that rubber.
The hot laps are coming out of Odendahl. A 1:02.9, a brand new lap record around the circuit for Stephen Odendahl as he headed up to outgun Blaze Baker.
Yeah, Baker would have to be careful to not get hung out to dry. And he was clever enough on the 51 Muscle and Fitness Kawasaki to get himself into a place to block out and try and run the pace of the Neolife powered by Yamaha rider out front.
The R6 now led and had 3 ZX6s on his tail. Would Odendahl be able to keep all these riders at bay?
At this point, he would have to pull the pin and start checking out, and that's exactly what he did, leaving the rest of the guys to duke it out for the second place. Boshoff had arrived into the top 3, getting around the 58 of Magic Mike, and would want to go after Baker quickly.
He'd gone a little bit easier in race number 2, which kind of helped his tyres out a little bit. Although, as I say that, you can see just how hard he actually was pushing now that he was in the fight.
Yeah, and this is dangerous because Boshoff, when he's under pressure like this, does tend to crack under the pressure and make mistakes. White is aware of this, having lapped around with him in race number 1, and was just allowing him to make those mistakes. He would pounce when he had to.
Incredible stuff between the 3 Kawasaki riders for second place. It didn't look like they had an answer to the power coming out of that Yamaha up front.
Boshoff then was going to try and get through on Blaze Baker as quick as he could to try and chase down on the race leader. And it was clear that Boshoff had the big hurry up and was trying desperately to get on through into second.
Magic Mike was having a look over his shoulder through turn 2 just to ensure that no one else was coming along for the ride. And no one was. Unfortunately, Rudman and Fenter a bit further back in the field.
Boshoff chose treacherous turn number 4 to shove a wheel up the inside and slowed down everyone's pace to get the move on through and taste clear air. Well, almost clear air. Only one rider out front as Baker did the big fight back at the top of the hill, but also got his nose cut off.
Yeah, just not able to make that move stick, but Magic Mike certainly saw a chink in the armor and went for it. He was not going to hold back, and the two of them are going to go bar to bar, side by side for the rest of the race.
Boshoff had that thing hopping, just could not get that cross-up controlled. That allowed the fight back to happen. So Boshoff eventually cleaning his run, throwing a bit of a share show into turn number 2 to try and anchor that thing up. And he consolidated his second place.
Third place battle was now what we're going to be watching out for. Baker versus Magic Mike. And that's how close it was. Around the outside, Magic Mike with a better drive onto the back straight and trying to use it through turn 4 up the hill to make the move stick on Blaze Baker. He thought he had what it takes to get him on the brakes, and that's exactly what we'd see by the time he bridged the top of the hill.
Mike White was trying to get around 2 riders at once. It was clear that Baker was slowing the pace. He tried to go for the cutback. Once again, Mike was in the right place, and the consortium shipping 58 just left a crack of a gap. And Blaze Baker shoved it back up the inside, but on the flip back, White was able to control.
Rubbing his racing coming out of the top double right-hander, NGL Logistics corner. The dice to the line, though, was between Baker and he actually just beat Michael White to the line. Incredibly, Mike White making a mistake in the final turn and losing that podium position.
Yeah, White not happy with that, but helping out, grabbing as many points as he could for the championship. But Odendahl goes double once again. The weather stayed away, everyone stayed dry, and Boshoff had a much better run, this time in second to win out ahead of Baker, who arrives onto the podium, ahead of Magic Mike White and Rudman in the top 5.
The first race, just getting a bit overconfident and then trying to get in the front at the very first lap. And yeah, I had to try to get back on the points for the second race. So I'm happy with the performance, and thanks to all my sponsors and everyone who's helped me.
Awesome race. Me, Blaze and Mark had an awesome battle. And Odendahl just left us, so yeah, well done to him and well done to Blaze.
I'm very happy with everything, that the package, the team, the way they've made the bike raceable for me.
So coming out of round number 2 of the Super 600s, these guys are giving us some of the best and closest racing on the season so far. The man to beat clearly is the reigning champion Odendahl as he waxes it. He is undefeated on the season thus far as he leaves Zwartkops.
Welcome to action from Zwartkops, and now Super GP and Super M combined action about to kick off with the Super Pole.
Super Pole, a massive feature since we have changed the format of racing, and once again making it into Super Pole, and the first man to throw down the big numbers, Brandon Good on the Nashua M-Tech Racing Yamaha. Trying to climb the ladder. Doesn't seem to be able to figure Super Pole out as yet, but he will have his point on the season where he comes good.
Still waiting for brand new machinery to hit the M-Tech camp, and as soon as it does, both him and his teammate Matthew Scholz will certainly be in contention. The new Yamahas on paper are looking good, and Yamaha South Africa telling us all that they're going to be the machines to beat.
Big mistake and a bit of a cross-up going into turn number 2, the second corner on his flying lap, and Goody is just doing what he can to get the numbers on the page.
Good started in 8th place overall for the Super Pole, and this lap would move him down into 6th place and onto the second row.
Yeah, starting to climb the ladder, second row, and on the outside of row number 2 is a very nice place as you tip into the first turn. He may be able to benefit from that position.
Brent Herron, charging hard, was only able to get into 6th place in qualifying with some issues, but as he started his lap, head down, and the Black Knight certainly looked fired up to possibly go and spoil the day for everybody at the top end of qualifying.
At this point, remember, it was undefeated the whole of last season, and coming out of round number 1, the king of Super Pole is still Clinton Seller. It was clear, though, that Brent Herron had a very good setup, and at this point went into provisional pole position with the fastest hot lap of the weekend and threw down a big challenge to the king.
101.971. Incredible stuff out of Brent Herron. The best we'd seen out of Seller was a 102.1. So he had to try and find something special, as did Matthew Scholz.
Scholzy was on charge, still on old equipment, but such an entertaining rider. It looked like the smaller circuit at Zwartkops was actually playing into his favor. He wasn't losing too much power down the back straight or up the hill, and he could carry tons of corner speed. So Scholzy, the danger man at round number 1, definitely very dangerous at round number 2.
One of the only riders in the SuperGP category that could actually run similar corner speeds to what you'd be able to do on a 600. Reason being is he just gets completely out of shape, uses the foot, uses all parts of his body to get the drive on the Yamaha. It was good enough to put him into 3rd on the front row.
So it was all down now to the king. Could Clinton Seller go undefeated at round number 2 as well to have a clean sheet? He was looking incredibly strong the whole way through practice and pre-qualifying, and this would be the lap to throw it down. Could anyone match him? Zwartkops, often referred to as his house because he does so much testing here. He knows his way around here very well.
He spoke to us in round number 1's interview and said that by Zwartkops he'd be looking good. He certainly was. Coming through the big sweep onto the back straight, no mistakes whatsoever, and down into the final turn. It was literally hundredths of a second between himself and Brent Herron. Could he do the unthinkable and go 10 for 10? Unfortunately not.
No.
Second place for him.
For the first time in over a year, Clinton Seller beaten in Super Pole. Herron is the new man.
Herron at the top of the qualifying after Super Pole, Seller in 2nd and Scholz in 3rd. Isaacs, Kershaw and Good your 2nd row, ahead of Anthony Shelley, Garrick Flock, Temba Kamalo and Bo Levy.
So, Super Pole sees a new kid on the top of the block, and Brent Herron arrives in 2015.
I'm really stoked about this. Made a bit of a mistake down in the 3rd last turn. I thought, okay, I'll blow notes, but walking back up the pit lane here, and I heard that Clinton didn't beat the lap, so I was really, really happy.
NGL Logistics brought to you in 60 seconds with Lance Isaacs, Black Swan Energy, BMW Motorrad South Africa. My proudest moment was probably being selected to race for Ducati in the World Superbike Championship in the late 90s. My favorite racetrack is London purely because it's got a combination of very, very high speeds, which I love doing, where my BMW Motorrad bike gets to stretch its legs, and it's got some technical sections as well that if you don't get it right, it'll ruin a good lap. I think my favorite superhero would have to be Batman. Favorite sport besides motorsport would have to be, I'd say, golf. SBK would definitely be a choice over MotoGP. My motorbike still sounds like my biggest rival would have to be my own head, I'd say. My most prized possession, my family. Favorite sports car would probably be Porsche Turbo. I would definitely choose a mountain bike over road bike. That's me, Lance Isaacs, brought to you in 60 seconds by NGL Logistics.
18 laps to go. Brent Herron has beaten the best in one flying lap. Can he do the rest when you bang all those 18 laps together?
Looking forward to seeing what's going to happen coming from behind, because Isaacs, I think, might just have something special, as will Kershaw, another Zwartkops specialist. Race 1 about to kick off here. The lights go out and we go racing.
Watch out for Scholzy on the inside of turn number 1. It's a tricky place to start from, but Herron has got all the pressure on his shoulders. Seller in a great position. Herron got a great launch off the line.
And leads into turn 1 with Scholz coming from the second row, up the inside and around the outside comes Isaacs. Seller looks like he might go into turn 2 in 4th place. No, he won't. He will just outbrake everybody and go into turn 2 in 2nd.
Threads the needle. This is danger zone. Now, we've got the 2 fastest riders from round number 1, based on their lap times, running out front. Harron has the best opportunity of his career thus far to go out and do the win.
And cement what he did in Superpole. That's what he's looking to do. Anthony Shelley on board the ZX-10, having a good run as he comes through there and heads up the top of the hill. Another Zwartkops specialist. Didn't quite get it all together in Superpole and heads up Garrick Flock and a charging Brendan Good.
Garrick Flock, as we will all note, steps off the Kawasaki for the first time this season and onto a BMW. Will the brute horsepower play into his hands?
He's going to be trying that out and seeing whether or not it's going to work for him. At the front end, though, Harron is under pressure. And the pressure comes in the form of Evil Knievel, his arch rival. And as they come out of turn 4, look how close it was between the two of them.
Yeah, Brent Harron is going to have to ask himself a question. Do I let him go or do I try and block him? Well, that's clearly the case that he's going to allow him to lead and just going to run with him and try and chip into the King's armor with possibly 2 laps to go.
Out of NGL Logistics, it was Matthew Scholz who'd made his way up into 3rd place, outgunning Lance Isaacs. Isaacs was comfortable sitting behind the Yamaha rider. He knew the potential for that Yamaha to go off by the closing stages was there.
Yeah, the top 2 Kawasaki riders were just flying though, and so early in the race had pulled out such a big gap over the rest. Isaacs by this stage was going to be busy looking over his shoulder because it was clear all the way through practice and qualifying that the BMW was a handful under braking, and this is one of the hardest braking circuits on the tour.
So glad you mentioned that, because it is definitely a difficult circuit to get right in terms of your braking. Garrick Flock was starting to feel the effects of it, as was the 3rd BMW rider, Nicholas Kershaw. Remember, he'd podiumed at race number 1. He was now fighting for 5th place on track, and on his tail came Brendan Good.
Yeah, the BMW boys were battling under braking scenarios. Not so much in the first 5 or 6 laps, but after that sector, then it became a real issue, and the brakes were starting to pump up. Garrick Flock, we call him the wild child. He's running just on the back wheel of Shelley at this point, and if anyone can tame the beast, it's the big guy.
Turn 8, turn 2, and turn 5. Those are where the braking issues come into play. They're heading towards turn 2 now, and Scholz has got pressure coming from behind the tar-paved Kawasaki, and problems there for Flock.
That was braking. That was braking slightly offline, and the wild child just got wild and threw the big 64 BM in the bin.
A bit of a pity there for him, because he was going really well at that stage and looked like he'd got to grips with the BMW. Fortunately, didn't get to grips with turn 1.
That meant that Shelley was now going and chasing down on a crazy, wild riding Matty Scholz. The front end was moving, the back end was moving, and the same tyre situation that we saw at Pekisa was coming into play for Scholz.
In the background there, you can see Flock just running ever so slightly wide, trying to keep it upright. He nearly did. Just not enough runoff and into the air fencing.
And that made everyone behind him sit up as well, because they didn't know where exactly he was going to go. Flock limps himself back onto the track, a full lap behind the top 5 at this point.
Would he stay out and try and survive and get as many points in the bag as possible? Unfortunately not. He pulled into pit lane, and that would be the end of the day for race 1.
At the halfway marker, the incredible was happening. Normally, we would see Seller check out and run away. Harron had him, and looked like he had the beating of him as well.
Matched and marked, that's for sure. Could he pull off the unthinkable and take a victory away from the man who has been so dominant in this Super GP Champions Trophy?
Yeah, Seller knew it as well. He was looking over his shoulder, and lap traffic was going to be a bit of a situation. Seller got through, and thankfully, Harron did as well. But that was a close one.
Gavin Breckel, the man on the KTM, just getting involved there ever so slightly, but the 2 Kawasaki's managed to get past.
Yeah, one of the biggest lineups of our Super M so far this season, and we are only at round number 2. But unfortunately, on a very close track, it was causing some issues. More issues, as for the second time, this seems to be a trend. Same thing happened at Pekisa. For the second time in one heat, Flock goes off.
Just battling to get to grips with this BMW, and I know the setup is being done by Steve Cannon. He's working hard to get it all sorted.
Yeah, just trying to find a situation that is going to suit the big rider. Once again, the lappers at the top of the hill as our race leaders climbed the ladder, and both of them would have been praying that there was a gap big enough for both of them to get through.
Van Lochenberg and Jannie Mol, the 2 riders being closed in by the leaders. And I think that's exactly what Brent Herron was hoping for. An opportunity like this doesn't come around too often, and if he could make it stick heading into the back markers, he might be able to make it stick to the closing stages and to the flag.
Mole on the 111 would be the first rider to go down, and the Super GP guys could only get through on one rider. In fact, Brent Herron at this point got cut off, and he had to change his line mid-corner to try and literally thread the needle left and right to try and figure his way through.
Fortunately for him, though, the same thing happened to Sella heading into turn 2. He got blocked ever so slightly, so the positions remained, and as they came into turn 4, it changed up. Using the drive on the back straight, and we saw a change in the lead for the first time since the change-up earlier on.
Herron finally hitting the front and controlling the lines to just block every inside line, overriding his bike, spinning it up, but would not give away the lead to Sella.
Sella, unfortunately, looked like he was going to have to settle for second place. He didn't seem to have an answer. The checkered flag was beckoning, and he had a lap to go. And man, it was going to be a close race.
Herron and his entire team at this point had their hearts in their mouths to try and see if he could hold this one off. It was clear in the body language of the 77 that he desperately wanted this one. But Sella has got so much skill and so much experience, he would be throwing it all on the table now to take it back.
Where could he find a way past? It was not going to be an easy way past, that is for sure. He'd have to fight for it. And in fact, down that back straightaway, it looked like he lost ever so slightly, a little bit of a margin to the leader at the race at this point. And man alive, was Herron on fire.
Yeah, Sella was clearly battling with rear end grip, the back end of the bike spinning all over the place. A monumental 18 laps for the guys to go at it, and at it they had gone. The top two were the class of the field, by far the fastest two riders out there. And down the hill one more time, onto the brakes for one last time. Herron was in control.
And perfectly done and perfectly timed as the checkered flag came out and gave him his first victory of the season. An extremely pumped up young man.
It was clear that he arrived here at round number 2 meaning business. He showed it in Superpole to take the crown away from the king and converted it. Herron now a definite championship threat.
Welcome to 2015, Brent Herron and the Kawasaki team. Heading into the next race, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen up the front end, but Herron certainly the class of the field in race 1, beating Sella and Isaacs to the top step of the podium. Shelley in 4th, Matthew Scholtz and Brandon Good beating out Nicholas Kershaw, with Bo Levy winning the Super M's.
So huge reactions from team and rider around as a new man arrives at the top of the pile. Herron has made this now a championship.
It was an awesome race. You know, Brent I knew all weekend, and in fact all year has been quick, and he's the reason that I've been working hard all year. So, you know, it was nice to see a close race at the front. He was all over me. I pushed as hard as I could. I tried to get away, and he was with me. So then we ended up racing, and he won, which is fantastic for Brent. Well done to him.
The bike's the bomb, so really stoked about that. I mean, obviously thanks to Kawasaki, Moroso exhaust pipes, KVD, paint shop, all the guys that are helping us out. Really stoked to get a win. I think it's been a long time coming, but finally I can have the confidence that I've got the monkey off my back.
Race 1 in the bag. Can he do it again in race 2? Join us after the break to find out.
Welcome back to Zwartkops and race 2 action now from the Diode SuperGP Champions Trophy. Looking forward to seeing what's going to happen now. Weather is inclement, and I think we're going to be in for a bit of wetness.
Yeah, as the guys went out on their sighting lap, the heavens completely opened, bringing out a change of surface. Riders were allowed to convert into full wets, and full wets they needed.
Wet race being declared for the second heat, and down into turn 1, it was going to be the whole shot coming from the man who wasn't on pole position. It was all about Clint Sella. But look how they tiptoed through turn 1. Not easy conditions to ride in whatsoever.
It was clear that race number 1 winner, Brent Herron, was on the back foot completely as he got absorbed all the way back down to 5th place, with Bo Levy, the leading Super M rider, getting himself into an initial 3rd place.
Incredible stuff from Brandon Good, starting to come up into the field as well, using the wet weather technology from Pirelli, and starting to hassle 3rd place there. That was Kershaw at that stage, and then Good into the final turn, nearly made it stick.
Yeah, the two Yamaha boys were not going to be able to unleash the power and get on the pipe early as they have been doing in the dry races. and that would see them on the back foot, though. Scholz has a lot of experience in these conditions, and as soon as he finds his pace, he'll be able to start climbing the ladder.
Incredible stuff from Bo Levy in the Super M's, running in 6th place on the KTM, just behind this little battle.
But Kershaw just tippy-toeing as the second of the BMWs, but all the while out front, Lance Isaacs setting the track alight. Very, very comfortable in these conditions, having done some off-season testing down in Cape Town in this weather.
Wet weather conditions, not easy to ride in. And any rider will tell you just how you have to have your wits about you to make it all stick.
Scholz, as soon as he found his rhythm, was able to plow through. He got rid of Goody, he got through on Kershaw, and even though the back end of the bike was twitching around, was the most comfortable, spinning it up all the way, showing how much standing water was actually on the ground.
Not easy to be riding in these conditions, and no one wanted to be out on track. They were ruining the day that they had an opportunity to ride in the dry. But now it was wet weather, and in order to win a championship, you must be able to ride in all conditions.
Yeah, Scholz was definitely the most impressive to watch as he came to terms with it, riding with the third wheel, his knee on the ground most of the time and figuring it out. Goody was actually also looking like he was enjoying the conditions a little bit better, with wet weather being the universal leveler across the board.
Giving the powerful motorcycles an opportunity to be caught by the less powerful motorcycles. Usually what happens in these kind of conditions, and rider skill certainly plays a massive card when it comes to these type of conditions.
Sella controlling his championship points lead, running in 2nd place, unable to run with the race pace of Lance Isaacs, who was gone, but who was starting to get closed down by 3rd place rider at the moment. Again, a revelation this season after stepping onto the big bikes. Scholz was looking on point to get all the way up to the top.
Scholz on the old Yamaha, and of course Sella would be on the new one, as would Matthew Scholz by the next round. And into turn 4 past Anthony Shelley, who's a really good wet weather rider at Zwartkops. Unfortunately, not able to put the power down on his ZX10. We saw a change for 2nd place, and Scholz had got through.
Isaacs getting through on one of the lappers, that was Van Logenberg in the Super M's, and around about 10 seconds later, Scholz comes through and able to instantly get away and pull a gap off the front of Sella. Sella would not want to drop any lower than 3rd.
Consolidation is what Clint Sella was doing right now. Didn't want to throw the bike down the road. Let's just finish the race as high up as possible.
Who was having a real problem as 2nd and 3rd came through on Van Logenberg. The real problem was Brent Herron. Race number 1 winner, turning his season around, and then the conditions turning it back round once again. Just way down the field for Herron as the back end started wagging all over the place for Scholz, as Sella had a reaction and tried to close back down and retake 2nd place.
I think the reaction came from Sella saying, wow, if that's what Scholz is doing, I don't want to be doing any of that. Let's just roll off ever so slightly and just finish the race. They came to the top of the hill. That's exactly what was happening. Scholz just maintained the little gap he had over Sella.
Top 3s, that's good enough for now. After starting his season so well at the Zwartkops Raceway, Sella, with the number 1 plate, reigning champion, a position he's been in for a couple of seasons now, was happy to carry on. And there was a terrible sight there. That was race leader Lance Isaacs putting Brent Herron, race number 1 winner, a lap back.
Down in 7th place, and in fact behind the leading Super M of Bo Levy, Herron certainly had gone from hero to 0. But 7th place is still points in the bag, and there's a long way to go in this season.
And the reason that Herron was going back was because before today, before heat number 2, at round number 2 of the Diode SuperGP Champions Trophy, Herron had never, ever turned a single lap in the wet.
Incredible to see how he had to get out there and baptism of fire or a baptism underwater, I'd have to say. That's usually where it happens, isn't it?
Exactly. He was not happy with the situation, but what could he do? Shows the leg, sends everyone through, and what a crazy scenario to see the man who was so fast the rest of the day on the back foot, waving the rest of the guys through as he puts himself a lap down.
Sella would be the next man to pass Brent Herron. It'd be incredible to see Sella going past Herron, considering the fact that the two of them had battled so hard for the race victory in race number 1.
Sella again staying in 3rd place, and for a short while at least, Brent Herron trying to run on the back wheel of his warring partner from heat number 1. The race was getting very long, and 18 laps was taking a lifetime for these guys as they were on the tightrope of control.
Incredibly though, it was 1 minute 17s coming out of Lance Isaacs and Matthew Scholz, and 18 out of Clint Sella. Brandon Good and the rest of the pack stuck in the top 20s.
At about the halfway marker of the race, Scholz was closing up on Isaacs. And as Isaacs also became a little bit more comfortable with conditions, he was able to maintain that gap and eventually stretch it out once again. So it did look like Scholz was going to be able to close down and possibly challenge for the win. And then Isaacs reacted, and he was gone out front.
About 10 seconds up the road for both of these riders, and nearly a little bit longer for as they came into the closing stages now. Temba Kamala was looking good as well, the only 600 rider in the Super M's, and him and Bo Levy had gone in it almost all race long. Temba eventually getting ahead of Bo Levy in the closing stages and now led the Super M's.
Super M's, little bit tricky for the guys to get around there again. In the Super M's, not many of the riders having wet weather experience, and Kamalo, as with Isaacs, as with Scholz, as the race went on, was getting better and better as he learned the scenario out there and figured out how to get it done.
Isaacs closing in on them, and the two Super M riders and the two Super M leaders looking to try and survive the last couple of laps. Isaacs just looking to get to that checkered flag.
Yeah, Scholz was still in good form and still entertaining the crowd with that wagging bat wheel style. Doesn't seem to be whether it's wet or dry. He really enjoys himself. But remember, at round number 3, he was going to be on the new equipment, which would change the face of racing for the rest of the season.
Temba Kamalo saw Lance Isaacs go past him and then tried to stay with Isaacs, getting away from Bo Levy completely. Levy had no answer on the KTM. He'd be looking to consolidate some points, as we were seeing. But unfortunately, and incredibly, Clint Sella, trying to consolidate those points, went down, got back up, remounted, and had to now try to fight back for a podium.
Yeah, that was a gnarly scenario. Kamalo, same situation for him. A little bit too confident once he had made the pass and stretched ahead of Bu Levy for the Super M lead. Went down at the top of the hill, and that bike was finished. There was no remount. If he did, there was going to be all kinds of stuff missing from that machine.
Bu Levy now hanging on for the lead of Super M, and the checkered flag beckoning for Lance Isaacs. Only a couple of corners to go. Incredibly, Sella was still rotating and got back ahead of Aaron yet again.
Come the end of the championship series in a few months' time, that may be extremely important. You've got to win a championship on your worst day. But now, the man who was starting his fight in the championship and finally getting his first win on the season, or heading towards it at least, was Isaacs, as he put his BMW stablemate one lap down. Kershaw would be the last rider to go into the lapper books.
It'd be the first time that Kershaw would have ridden 1,000 in the rain, so we'll give him his due, and a good effort there from the young man. But as they headed down into the final turn, yes, another victor for the season was going to come out of the Black Swan Energy BMW camp.
So Zwartkops, round number 2 of the Diode SuperGP Champions Trophy, delivering plenty of drama, especially in the Premier category, the Super GPs. Race 1 going to Harron, race 2 going to Isaacs, and this is exactly what he needed going forward into the season.
And into his home round down in Cape Town. So Isaacs fired up now, and a little bit of wheelie for the crowd. Takes the victory ahead of Matthew Scholz, who eventually hung on for second place. Sella beating Brandon Good to the line ever so slightly in the closing stages to make the pass and up onto the podium. Good in 4th place. Kershaw in 5, and Bu Levy eventually winning out the Super M's.
Happiest man on the day. He didn't get Super Pole, he didn't get the win in race number 1, but he leaves as the winner from race number 2. Isaacs ahead of Scholz. Sella, like you said, Greg, recovering to that 3rd place ahead of Goody. Kershaw, good enough for 5th place, and the last rider to go a lap down. Super M victor, Bo Levy once again.
I just said bring the bike home safely, so no, it was pretty tough being out in the wet, but fun. What a learning school.
It's my first time riding a 600 in the wet ever, and probably wet in 2 years, so it was just learning curve. Very happy with the pace, so yeah, just learn from this and don't make the mistake again.
All the races this year has been interesting, so let's see what happens in Cape Town. Maybe we have some more wind there, but I'm enjoying it. Temba did very well. He had so much grip in the inch of the corner. I didn't have any, so I thought I'll just stick with him, and I had a little moment, and then he crashed and gave it to me, so I'm lucky.
We sort of reached a pause with the bikes that we were with, and it shows the guys are still pushing, and we maybe backed off myself personally, so it's actually nice. You know, I get to go home now and start to focus again and get my head back in the game. But you know what? It was an important day, a second, which was very disappointing for me in the first race, but Brent rode brilliantly. And then in this race, man, I crashed and I still finished podium, so there was nothing more I could ask for that. You know, I've never been a rain expert, so I'm happy for just on the podium in the rain.
The actual starter wasn't the best for me, but then I managed to pass quite a few guys. I got Barcella and then Lance. The actual gap was too big, but yeah, hopefully Cape Town we can come back stronger riding the 2015 Yamaha, and hopefully that'll be a lot better for us. We'll have more horsepower and stuff. So yeah, we'll see how things go then. I'm sure we'll be closer towards the front.
Absolutely awesome. Conditions were terrible, if I can say that. But it was just I knew from the get-go it was going to have to get out front and try to set the pace, not try to tussle with anybody. I've got some experience racing in the rain in Europe, so what can I say? My BMW Motorrad Black Swan Racing steed actually pulled through for me, so I was just a passenger steering it to the victory.
So that takes us out of round number 2. It has been an incredible round here at Zwartkops for the DO SuperGP Champions Trophy. New winners in the Super Juniors, new arrivals in the Super 600s, and new victors in the Premier category, which is going to change the look and feel of the championship as we head towards Killarney and Cape Town.
The DO SuperGP Champions Trophy is proudly brought to you by Digital Entertainment On Demand and their associate sponsors.